Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a Perfumers portfolio video, and it's not just any Perfumers portfolio, it's actually going to be a ranked Perfumers portfolio video on a very special perfumer, at least to me, and we're actually doing this as a subscriber request. One of my subscribers left a comment asking if I could do this one next, and I thought it was a great idea because the previous Perfumers portfolio video that I did showcased a woman who came up through the ranks and became very popular very early on, thanks to Christopher Chong and Amouage, and her name was Cecile Xerjoff. And this is one of my favorite creations from her. This is Epic Woman by Amouage. It's absolutely fantastic. What a creation this is. And like I've said before, guys, don't let the fact that it says woman on it stop you from trying this. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. This is very unisex to my nose. So, Christopher Chong and Amouage helped two big female perfumers catapult their careers as far as I'm concerned. Cecile Xerjoff and the perfumer we're going to highlight today, whose name is Karine Vinchon-Spehner. And Christopher Chong says that she was just a baby when she came to Amouage originally and made her very first fragrance for Amouage, which was called Memoir Man. So we are going to rank 9 Karine Vinchon-Spehner fragrances that I have smelled. I have not smelled all of her work, obviously. Actually, looking at the list of fragrances that she has created, I haven't even smelled most of her fragrances, I would say. She's done a lot for houses. Like, for example, she did, when you look at her portfolio, she did a lot of work for a brand, which I've never smelled before, called By Terry. I've never smelled this By Terry brand before. She also did some work for Nobile 1942, which I've never smelled, but I have a sample somewhere sitting up here waiting in the queue, basically, to get to. She's done some work for L'Artisan Parfumeur. She did some fragrances for some houses I'm just not very familiar with. Douglas and Nino Amato. She did some Zara, which I've never really smelled much from Zara. And she did some Emium, work for a house called Emium. So she's done some stuff that I'm just not very... Attar Al Hus. I've never smelled any of these houses before. OPSO. Opso. She also did some for Memo Paris, which I've never smelled. And so a lot of her work I have not smelled. Now, she has a new fragrance out from the House of Amouage. It just came out this year. It's one of the extremely expensive attars called Santal Sohar. Would love to smell those attars one day. I've never smelled any of the attars before, but she's done some work for Memo and stuff like that I've never smelled. So these are fragrances that I either have full bottles in my collection, or I have decants that, and I've talked about all of the decants either in previous live streams. One thing that I do want to mention, if you are newer to the channel, I know everybody wants the newest content, and it's popular to just talk about the newest content that gets put out. But over the last year to year and a half, I would say I have put out a ton of content that is just as worthwhile for you to go watch today as when I made it. And a lot of that stuff doesn't really age for the most part. In the group that I'm in with some of the other famous YouTubers, Jonathan 1970 and Rich Mitch, and we were talking about watching old YouTube videos, and they were mentioning watching even Christo's old videos, and that was a decade plus. So this sort of content doesn't age in a way where it becomes irrelevant. You can watch these years and years in the future, and I have put out a ton of content within the last year especially. So if you are new to the channel, I would urge you to go back through my old videos and check some of that out, but also the live stream. So one live stream that we did was focused specifically on some of Amouage's newer work. Some of them was focused on specifically some of the women's Amouages, which I've never smelled, and some of them was focused on the House of Xerjoff, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I did some Xerjoff sniffs, first impressions, and that's where some of her work is going to show up today. So 9 fragrances. I wish it was a top 10. I just don't have one more that I could add. Although she's done, like I said, she's done some things from L'Artisan I would like to smell. She did a fragrance called Batucada, which I've never smelled. She did the new Xerjoff called Groove X-Cape. Weird name with an X, X-Cape. Never smelled it, never even heard of it. She did Cour de Vetiver Sacré by L'Artisan in 2010. I do want to smell that one. And she did an Amouage Opus 3, which I've never smelled Opus 3. So I've got my work cut out to try to understand more of her portfolio, but I think I have a good grasp on her. But before we sort of read the blurb about Karine and her background, I do want to do a quick scent of the day, as is customary for Channel Ram. Today I actually wore this for the very first time from the House of Matriarch. This is a fragrance called The Longing. And The Longing is a very strange fragrance. I can tell you right now, I'm not the biggest fan. Just had it my scent of the day. First time really wearing it. And it's not that it's a bad scent. I just reapplied, but I wore it to work today. So I've got the dry down here. And it's basically what they call a gourmand and white floral unisex fragrance. It leans feminine to me. If, you know, again, I'm not big on genders in perfumery, but the white floral notes and stuff like that makes it lean feminine. But you know what it smells like? It smells like, to me, if you... It smells like, to me, if you took a construction style like Francesca Bianchi with that big heavy Ors butter that she loves to use, and you add these fruits and florals. And there's actually a very interesting floral note in here called Baronia. And apparently Baronia is a very expensive floral note, some sort of a shrub. It's native to Australia. But she's mixed it with oud and plum and that Ors butter note with honey and osmanthus and vanilla orchid and orange blossom. Interesting sort of combination with some vanilla, amber, leather, and sandalwood in the base. And it's just that Francesca Bianchi sort of DNA, that Ors butter heavy DNA, very creamy white floral, fruity as well because of the plum. I wish the oud was more turned up. It adds a little bit of this, you know, what oud does in a fragrance is sort of resinous, woody character, but it's not animalic or anything like that. It's not an animalic oud. I wish it was, but there is a card that comes with The Longing, and on the other side of the card, it's a limited edition. Apparently, it's sold out on the website, but it says that limited edition release of the bespoke fragrance created for pillar of the fragrance community, Joseph Sagona. 20% of the sales from The Longing will be donated to the Humane Society in Joseph's name. And there's actually a quote from Joseph Sagona. Sad to say, I don't know who that is. But a spiritual chant I hear echoing in the distance, a mystical rhythm that pulsates through every fiber of my existence, a sensual dance of an erotic essence. Flowers of the divine soothe the darkest of souls. Fruits picked from the fragile shrub as pure sweetness unfolds, an everlasting beauty that longs to behold. A tussle of sweet honey slides down your wet lips. Dewy skin is a temptation I cannot resist, a balmy, musky climax of love, tenderness and butterfly kisses, a longing for your aroma and fragile touch is a blessing of pure heavenly lust, a warm purple hue that blossoms through in my vivid dreams of you. That's from Joseph Sagona in 2016. So I can just tell you that if you know Francesca Bianchi's work, imagine it with sort of this unique white floral accord because of that Baronia note and the vanilla orchid. And it's just a sort of unique, but it's still a white floral, you know, with this almost gourmand whipped creaminess. It's not that it's bad, it's just, it's not my favorite, I'll tell you that. I would take wearing Beauty Wood or Devotion, or even the last one from this house that I did a early impression video on called Black No. 1. It used to be known as Blackbird over this. This is probably one of my least favorite House of Matriarch fragrances that I've tried. I'll do a full review on it one day, but it's not my favorite style. But that's what I wore today as my scent of the day. Okay, so let's get into Karine Vinchon-Spehner's history. So I just pulled a little blurb from Fragrantica. So apparently she's a Robertet perfumer. She has her website as robertet.com. It says, Karine Vinchon-Spehner's childhood in Normandy, France was marked by the fragrant memories of her grandfather's biscuit shop and the region's picturesque apple orchards. These captivating scents fueled her curiosity about perfumery and led her to pursue a career in the field. Karine enrolled at ISI PCA, the prestigious perfumery school in Versailles, to hone her skills and deepen her understanding of the craft. And that's like the big time school everyone tries to get into. It's like the one that they accept, like, I don't know, like 7 people a year or something crazy, 5 people a year. Upon completing her education, Karine began her professional journey at Robertet, a renowned fragrance firm, under the mentorship of master perfumer Michel Almarac. Very good tutor she had. Throughout her career, she has created exceptional fragrances for brands such as Amouage, La Tisane, Memo, and Brioni. I've never smelled the Brionis either. It says her perfumes are characterized by the abundant natural raw ingredients and her penchant for ambery and woody notes. She is particularly fond of working with patchouli and vetiver, often incorporating these elements into her creations. Her unique approach to perfumery focuses on the generosity of these ingredients, which lends depth and complexity to her fragrances. Karine's inspirations are deeply rooted in her childhood memories and the natural world around her. She weaves these evocative scents into her creations, connecting her past experiences and her present work. One example of this connection is her fragrance Tiger's Nest, inspired by a meeting with Clara at the Cine Haiku Short Film Festival sponsored by Memo Paris and Gourds. This heady, rich, and ambery scent encapsulates the essence of Karine's affinity for nature's abundance. Karine Vinchon-Spehner's journey in the world of perfumery is marked by her passion for the natural world and her ability to capture its essence in her creations. Her education at ISI PCA and her early career under Michel Almarac's guidance has shaped her into a master perfumer with a unique and generous approach to perfume creation. I feel like everyone's a master perfumer now. Like, is she really a master perfumer? I mean, I love her, but still, I think it's a little early to call her a master perfumer. Maybe they're just saying she's a master perfumer, but she's not like a master perfumer, if that makes sense. Karine's fragrances, influenced by our childhood memories and love for natural raw ingredients, leave an indelible impression on those who experience them. That's from Fragrantica. There's a Lucky Scent little blurb that says, she was quickly hired by Robertet out of the ISI PCA school, where she apprenticed under Michel Almarac before being promoted to junior perfumer. Inspired by nature and exotic locales, she creates expressive exotic scents. And then there's another blurb that I just pulled out here, which sounds like it was pulled from the Fragrantica article. Okay, yep, that sounds like it was pulled from the Fragrantica article. So, just, let's see if there's anything else about her that I can just pull up real quick. So if you search for her, actually, the first perfumer portfolio I did with her pops up on the YouTube search thing. Karine Vinchon-Spehner is a talented perfumer that crafted top creations in the field of niche perfumery. She worked for many niche brands. There's a little interview about her that I would urge you to read on Scentertainer.net. I've never heard of that site before. But I'll just read you a little blurb, a little quote from it. It says, when I have the chance to create for a niche brand like Amouage, I don't want to be too influenced by perfumes from the past, because for me, a niche perfume has to be new and unique. If I really have to pinpoint an inspiration, she's talking about Boundless here, I would say Gucci Pour Homme, created by Michel Almarac in 2003 for the vetiver side, and Féminité du Bois by Shiseido, created by Christopher Sheldrake and Pierre Bourdon in 92 for its spicy notes. If, as I do, you like these perfumes, I think there's a good chance you'll like Boundless. The light and the golden color that I wanted to represent are very important in the perfume. That explains the use of the star ingredient, vanilla, in all its balsamic tones. It's interesting to speak about legacy because Michel Almarac was my mentor, and I do hope Boundless, which I'm very proud of, will see the same success as his masterpieces. Boundless has so many facets. Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole interview to you. It's quite long, but worth a read. Okay, so let's get started with the ranking. So this is going to be a top 9, as I said. I just didn't have that final one to do a top 10. It'll be a top 9. Number 9 on the list is actually her newest creation as far as my nose goes. And I'm going to spray some of this on because if you follow my channel, okay, and you will know that I actually did a live stream on what I called the new Amouage set. This is Amouage's new packaging, which I hate. I despise the new packaging. I think it's, anyways, I'm not a fan of it. I'll tell you that. I like the way they used to do it back in the day. So this is their new packaging. Even sort of the way that the writing has changed. They've changed some things with the brand since the Fishman has taken over. And so she created a fragrance that came out earlier this year, called Lineage. And this actually arrived at my house thanks to a friend at the end of 2022. And I was like, what in the world are these? Like, are these like, he was like, these are, new Amouages. I don't know if they're going to be limited edition or what. And then it turned out these were actually their new releases. They put the sample set out months before the full bottles were released. And I was shocked they released these as full bottle releases, because you can instantly tell that they're going in a different direction as a brand. Instantly they are leaving behind people like me, people who used to love Amouage, and frankly, they just don't care. They have their new audience that they're going for, and they're happy with that. And that's their decision. That's fine. And actually, of the 4 that I tried, if you go back and watch my live stream, which if you put those live streams on like 2x speed, or my videos on 2x speed, it goes much faster if my long video form sort of bothers some people. But I just have a conversational way of presenting, and that's just how I'm always going to be. But if you go back and watch that live stream, you'll notice that I say that this is probably the most unique of the ones that were presented as far as ingenuity and trying something different. However, the reason that this is number 9 is there's something about it that clashes to me, and I don't care for it. There's this weird milky, smoky saffron thing in the top, and instantly you get this smoky, almost like suntan lotion mixed with saffron. Okay, and it's weird. The main accords, according to Parfumo, are spicy, green, smoky, fresh, and aquatic. So imagine those accords. It's a very strange sort of mix of main notes, main accords, if you will. To give it credit, though, there is an Amouage frankincense that comes through in the heart. Okay, so it does stay true, I think, to what it is. But there's this fenugreek note, and fenugreek can sometimes give off this almost like baby throw up, baby vomit, if you will. Fenugreek has this sort of, imagine like a baby spitting up mama's milk, okay? Not like a man's throw up or a woman's throw up, but imagine like a baby throwing up mama's milk. That's sort of the feeling of fenugreek sometimes, and I get it here with this myrrh. And so my favorite parts of the scent are the labdanum, the frankincense, and the myrrh. And the labdanum and frankincense and myrrh come out more in the dry down. However, there's this very strange sort of opening. That's why I say it is unique. You have to give it points for being unique, but it's not for me. So what Amouage did is they took gender out of the perfume marketing now. All of their scents are unisex. And I actually used to really like that Amouage had masculine and feminine releases. So now what they do is they put it in the traditional masculine bottle or the traditional feminine bottle, but they just call it unisex. I'll show you when we get to Boundless. But this one comes in the traditionally feminine bottle, okay? So even though it's unisex, it's clear they're still sort of marketing it towards the feminine side of things, and you can smell it in the release. There is something that leans slightly feminine on this. However, I think this would smell amazing on the right woman. It's not for me, but I think on a woman that's really takes care of herself and is in a position of power, Lineage would smell great because it's so different. And this would be one of those Amouages that I really do think you can wear in the warmer weather, even though it has these heavier notes: patchouli, benzoin, vetiver, labdanum, frankincense, myrrh. Even saffron can sometimes come across as very forward of a note. There's something fresh about it. Remember at the opening I said there's this sort of suntan lotion vibe. I don't know where that comes from, but there is this fragrance reminds me of like a Japanese lotion for some reason. And even the color coding feels very Japanese to me. So I like it, but it just had to be at the bottom of the list. I'm just very disappointed in what Amouage has done with their new releases. And if you really want to hear my thoughts in depth even further on these four, I did a live stream talking about guidance, lineage, purpose, and search. You can go check that out and kind of see my thoughts, hear my thoughts. But yeah, that's number 9 is going to be lineage. Okay, number 8. Number 8 is going to be a Xerjoff. So a Xerjoff beat an Amouage, go figure. But this is actually Casamorati 1881. Not the best Xerjoff, not the worst Xerjoff I've ever smelled. I'll tell you that. I would take this over Symphonium any day of the damn week. Although, what kills this for me, and the reason that this is 8 and not any higher, is because it has this Xerjoff sweetness that they just cannot help themselves but throw in there. Now, this is a 10-year-old fragrance. Casamorati 1888. And so this is sort of like a spicy, floral, oriental. Interestingly enough, she also uses saffron in the top. Very similar to the saffron usage in Lineage. But this is actually a completely different fragrance. This is bringing in aspects of carnation, which I actually really do like. I love the note of carnation. I wish more fragrances went back to using carnation like the good old days. It usually adds this sort of floral, green, spicy. Carnation can sometimes come across as very spicy, and it can come across as very green. And I always associate carnation with masculine perfumery of the past because it was very popular to put a carnation note in masculine fragrances. And so you get this sort of herbal, spicy coriander with green pepper and Persian saffron, okay? And that saffron amber sort of oriental style of the fragrance will hit you almost immediately, along with this spicy floral aspect. And the florals that you're going to get here are Indonesian ylang-ylang and Moroccan neroli. And so neroli usually adds this fresh, laundered, element to a fragrance where it's very. I always associate it, with smelling. Imagine like the zing and freshness of lemon, but without the citrus, And neroli usually gives off that clean sheet, laundered, downy soft type feel. And you get that here. You'll get the neroli. I'm already getting it, but it's blended with heavier notes, and it's blended with amber, patchouli, and what Xerjoff says is Mysore sandalwood, which my guess is that's their way of saying we created an accord that we think smells like real Mysore, but they're not actually using Mysore in 2013, in a fragrance that costs $280 or whatever this is. It would cost, I don't know what it would cost, but it would definitely be more than that if they were using real Mysore, is my guess. But I don't know. Maybe they are using a drop of Mysore just to claim they are, but I would think with the amount of bottles they're producing in mass, it would be prohibitively expensive for them to be using real Mysore. That's my guess. But all in all, this is not the worst Xerjoff I've ever smelled. Would I buy this with my own money? Hell no. Absolutely not. This is way too sweet for me. That Xerjoff sweetness just bothers me. It's there almost from the second you spray. And there's just no getting away from it. It's just the DNA. But do I hate this? No, I don't hate it. And I would probably would I wear this and grit my teeth to do a review on this? Yes. Would I want to wear Lineage to do a full review? I don't think so. So that's why 1888 jumped ahead of Lineage one spot. Okay, so that was number 8. Number 7. Number 7 on the list is coming in the form of a, you you have to go, if you want my initial take on this, you have to go to my Amouage Woman's First Impression videos. There's actually a couple of them, and I have to thank one of my subscribers who very kindly sent me decants from her women's collection so I could talk about them on the channel, and they are very good. I mean, the women's Amouages, I really kicked myself. Once I discovered how good they are, I actually bought full bottles of Gold Woman, Jubilation 25 Woman is absolutely fantastic. And Epic Woman is probably my favorite from the whole women's line. Epic and Jubilation, I would say Woman go back and forth. But this one's quite nice, and it's called Figment Woman. And Figment Man, if you follow me, you know that I actually ended up buying a bottle of Figment Man. There it is right there. After initially hating it. It was one of the fragrances I bought a sample. Usually back in the day, I would just buy Amouage fragrances when they came out. Just instantly, as soon as they came out, I would buy it. And that's one that kind of scared me, and I bought a sample. And at the time, I was glad I did, because I was like, no way is this for me. This is one I'm just going to have to skip. And then, as the years have gone by, well, I'm getting a lot of the spicy floral in the opening here. But as the years kind of went by and I tried Figment Man again, I just fell in love with it. Like, I was like, what was I thinking? You know, and sometimes that the nose does change. As you smell a lot of things, your perception of a fragrance changes as the years tick by. And so I ended up buying a bottle last year, and I'm very glad I did, because I've come to the conclusion that Figment Man is probably my favorite Annick Menardo creation, period, out of all her fragrances. And it sucks because I did a Annick Menardo Perfumers portfolio video ranked just like I'm doing today, and then the very next day or the day after, I got my bottle of Figment Man, and that would have been top spot. So I kind of snuck it in there after the fact with a little asterisk. But Figment Woman is a spicy floral that focuses on florals like gardenia, jasmine sambac, orange blossom, tuberose, which is usually a big no-no for me, and ylang ylang. And it again has saffron in the top. All three of these that we've started with have saffron in the top with Sichuan pepper. And Sichuan pepper usually gives me this fiery like smell. Look at the red color of the Journeyman bottle. Imagine that red, and that has Sichuan pepper in it too, by the way. But imagine that red fiery like accord. That's what Sichuan pepper always gives me. This like dragon's fire, okay? And then the base is frankincense, iris, patchouli, and papyrus. And I remember when I was doing the live stream, someone was asking me, would you take this or would you take the new Honor? They did an exceptional extrait. I hate that. They did an exceptional extrait of Honor 43 or something. And I did not like that one at all. If I was going to pick one of the big floral bombs, this is a big floral Amouage creation, I would take this over something like Honor Woman any day of the week. I like this much more. This is much more interesting to me, and it has a cassia note, and it has this almost like a papery papyrus note. And when you mix it with the frankincense and the base and sort of the poshness of the iris, which gives fragrances this 3D-like construction to me, it's just beautiful. I mean, it's not for me, I'll tell you that. It's not something I would want to like wear to work or anything like that. But as a piece of art, like really enjoying the fragrance, Figment Woman it's a good perfume. It definitely is. This is something I could, this is definitely something I could recommend to somebody looking for this type of fragrance. But just because of my personal preference, it ends up at number 7. Number 6. Number 6 is our first full bottle. And it is the aforementioned Boundless. So I don't have very many boxes left. I basically stuck all of my boxes back into the attic just for pure space and ease to turn around and grab. But some of these Amouages, the boxes kind of stuck around because they're such a good fit. And this is one of them. So this one came out in 2021. And so at the time, I said that this was the worst Karine Vinchon-Spehner release. I've since obviously sort of changed my mind, and now it's come in at number 6. I still wouldn't say it's the best thing she's done, But it has gained, let's say, in popularity in my mind since I've sprayed it and smelled it the very first time. And this was one of those that as soon as it came out, I went and bought it blind. And I probably shouldn't have. I just went off of the notes. Probably shouldn't have. If I would have sampled this, I don't think you would be looking at a bottle on my shelf right now. But I am glad to have it because I have come around to it. It's sort of this spicy, woody, elemy, vanilla. With what bothered me the most about Boundless is it has this amber wood like accord, and so this is the presentation on the inside. It's actually a really nice presentation. I like the color of the bottle. And so this is one of the ones that's marketed unisex, but in the men's bottle, clearly masculine. And it says, when I created Boundless, I wanted to play with the idea of a golden wood and a gateway to a dense jungle where wood essences of all kinds can be perceived. I used the raw aspect of vetiver roots, the smoky effect of gaiac wood, and the earthy tones of patchouli supported by oak moss. I represented the reflection of sun rays piercing through the branches with natural materials evoking light and the golden color, such as vanilla, castoreum, and ginger, or balsams, frankincense, benzoin, labdanum, and myrrh. Created for Amouage by Karine Vinchon-Spehner, April 2021. So they say the key notes, according to the package, are blood orange oil, cardamom oil, ginger CO2, elemi absolute and oil, frankincense absolute and oil, myrrh resinoid, vetiver patchouli, patchouli oil, vetiver oil, patchouli oil, gaiac wood oil, papyrus oil, benzoin resinoid, vanilla bourbon absolute and CO2, cacao absolute. I don't know if I included this on my cacao video, but I obviously could have. Tobacco absolute and oak moss absolute. And so if you watched my This Is Not a Top 10 cacao video from just a couple days ago, you'll notice that this was absent. I did not include it, and I obviously could have. And there is a cacao roll that plays here. So what bothered me the very first time I smelled this is I said, you know what, this is a good fragrance, but it's not an Amouage. It doesn't smell like an old Amouage that had, balls. It had the intestinal fortitude to do something different and unique. This smelled to me initially like a Parfum de Marly fragrance, okay? Something along those lines. Nice to sort of smell, but lots of amber woods, and that's the problem for me with Boundless. And when I read her thing and I saw golden wood in quotes, I was like, oh shit, that's just basically like they're almost just highlighting amber woods here. And the amber wood part, if you've smelled it before, you'll pick it out almost instantly. There's a lot of this amber wood like material. Interestingly enough, there is papyrus in the base again. Very similar construction to what I mentioned with Figment Woman, papyrus in the base. And the spicy opening of this is very, very well done. Okay, so if you're somebody that's really going to break the fragrance down and be critical, I'll do a full review one of these days. I just have to get around to doing these full reviews, but I'll do a full review on Boundless one day. And the opening is beautiful because it has that cardamom, ginger, blood orange with elemi, and it's very well done. The elemi usually comes off as slightly fresher than the frankincense, which you'll get in the base, and slightly more lemony, if you will, a citrusy aspect to the elemi, and it's very well done. And I'm a sucker for tobacco, and this is a tobacco scent. So even though I have to sort of grit my teeth with the amber wood accord in here, I've come around on Boundless. So Boundless is number 6. Number 5. Number 5 is back to the decants, and this is called Interlude Woman. So this is the woman's version of Interlude, and I just want to spray this because it's been a while since I smelled it, but I remember being blown away by this fragrance and thinking, you know what, if I was going to add a handful of women's fragrances, this Interlude Woman would be one of them. It is very, very well done. And I don't think there's anything that would stop a man from wearing this either. Yeah, just like I don't think there's anything that would stop a woman from wearing Interlude Man. Man, the way that instantly you sort of get this uplifting punch in the face from ginger, which again, she used ginger in the top with grapefruit, and already a couple seconds it's starting to change pretty heavily. Marigold sort of adds this dry, imagine having like a plant in your backyard that you forgot to water and it sort of starts to wither out and dry. Marigold has this sort of dry type feeling. With the Immortelle, or what they call Everlasting Flower. I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same thing. But Immortelle takes this fragrance in a little different direction from Interlude Man. I'll tell you that. So the Everlasting Flower sort of takes it in a little different direction. As does, I think, the Rose Absolute is much more amped up in here. The Rose and Jasmine and Orange Blossom is much more amped up than Interlude. But there is sort of this ambery oriental side to this that you get in Interlude Man. It's a little bit different. But the Apopanax, the amber, the benzoin, the oud, the animalic touches, the leather, I really fell in love with Interlude Woman. And that's the reason why it's number 5. Jumped Boundless. Couldn't go any higher than 5 because we have some of my favorites coming up in the top 4. But man, this is full bottle worthy. I'll tell you that. If I ever find like an older vintage bottle at a very fair price, I would go. This is one I would go for. Excuse me. It's I think it's worthy of a full bottle purchase. Okay, number 4 is going to be maybe a little bit controversial for some. And in fact, Interlude Woman almost jumped number 4 as well. But I have such a personal connection to number 4. I just couldn't. I could not put Interlude Woman ahead of this. And this is Fate Man at number 4. And I'm not usually very big on packaging, but I just want to show you the packaging here. And look at this. Look at the packaging on Fate. I think it is amazing. I think it's beautiful. Almost awe-inspiring. Almost like you could just sit down, have a glass of wine, spray on Fate Man, and just let your thoughts wander while looking at this packaging. It is, with the celestial bodies in the sky, the sun, you think about time and phases of the moon, the unicorns, the stars. It's just gorgeous. The moon, the Amouage logo in the middle. I think this is the keys to the lock that opens some door in your mind, maybe. Just beautiful packaging. Absolutely beautiful. This is one of the Made in Oman boxes. And Fate Man is rumored to potentially be getting the axe at one point. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it did get discontinued, I could see why. And speaking of packaging, look at the bottle. Tell me that's not one of the best bottles in the game. I think this bottle, which ended up inspiring the Portrayal bottle, which is right there. I'm not flipping you off. It's right there. It ended up inspiring the Portrayal bottle. Those two bottles are some of my favorite Amouage bottles. They are so Amouage and done absolutely perfectly. But Fate has a issue that most people can't get past. And that issue is the cumin in the top. This is sort of a cumin lover's dream, because the cumin in the top is no holds barred, no holding back. They are not trying to please anybody. They're not doing what Amouage did here or here and tried to appeal to a more mainstream audience. They weren't worried about money with this one. I can tell you that. This was a work of art, pure and simple. This belongs in a museum. Now, some people will say that makes it unwearable. I say no, it doesn't, because that sort of smoky, again, saffron in the top. So you can sort of see she has a trend with her construction. Saffron in the top with cumin and everlasting flower in the heart. Again, just like Interlude Woman. So you can see she sort of continues with the trends. of some of the notes that she likes to use, which I like. And there's absinthe in the top. There's ginger and mandarin orange with that everlasting flower note, which the immortelle here is big as well. So cumin and immortelle. And immortelle can sometimes be known as the curry plant, because sometimes people say immortelle gives off a slightly curried-like vibe. So this dry, you know, and this fragrance is desert dry, bone dry, dry to the bone. The only thing that sort of slightly starts to warm it up a little bit in the base is sort of the resins. So you start to get the labdanum and the licorice and tonka bean and stuff like that. Some cistus. But opening, when you first spray, it is parched. Your mouth is parched. You're walking through the desert and looking for an oasis, and you thirst. Okay, that's the feeling of Fate Man when you first spray, with what some describe as almost like an Indian restaurant curry vibe, and that puts them off. I say it's a dry, expertly done cumin that if you give it a chance to get past the first 30 minutes or 45 minutes, grit your teeth if you have to, if you're a fragrance lover. Trust me, it's worth it, because once you get past that first 30, 45 minutes and you start peeling back the layers, you realize that this is a true amouage through and through. It offers everything the other great amouages from the past that everyone raves over offers. It's just that opening is hard for some people. And I've come to love it. Obviously, I've come to love it. God. And so that's why this is number 4, is because this checks all the boxes for me, and I have like a personal sentiment with this. And you can see I've had this fragrance for probably, I don't know, I did not buy this in 2013 right away, because I got one of the sample sets that had like a mini, and that mini fragrance was enough. It was like a, I don't know, 10 ml mini bottle or something, maybe 5 or 7.5 mil, I don't know, but it was like a set of mini amouages, and this was one of them. And then I ended up going back later on after I finished it and decided to buy a full bottle. But yeah, this is a special. I'll do a full review. The only bad thing I'll say about this fragrance is I guess maybe some of the older bottles, the magnet on the cap is you can sort of see it's a little bit loose, which worries me. But other than that, it's perfect. So yes, I am very happy with Fate. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 3. Number 3. Can you guys guess what it is? It is my only 50 ml amouage that I bought in the men's bottles. I wish I would have bought 100 ml of this, but it is the great Myths Man. Some people call this, and again, look at the packaging. Look at the dragon on the top. Myths is, I mean, what can I say about Myths that I haven't already said on the channel? So it came out in 2016, and some people say it's a cousin to Interlude, and I see what they mean because of the construction. There's that ambery, leathery, ashy, smoky, resinous part to this that will remind you of Interlude, but this is completely and 100% its own fragrance. Now, the only reason this is not number 2 is that there's one thing that started to come out with Myths later on, once I got to know the fragrance and really understand, and my taste sort of grew, is that I am not a fan of sweet fragrances normally, and there is this sweet rum note and maybe some amber woods in here, which I've come to be able to sort of pick out. And sometimes they bother me, the sweetness does. But the fragrance is just so beautifully built for fragrance lovers, okay? The average person is going to smell this, and they're going to say, you're in a nightmare. You have completely lost your mind. How the hell can you wear it? This is unwearable. I disagree. So this opens up with chrysanthemum and iris, which I can't say I know exactly what chrysanthemum smells like, but it's known as a funeral flower in the East. And it's interesting because this fragrance always gives me this life and death sort of connotation. This is a very inward-looking fragrance to me. Something that really kind of makes your mind tick. Think about the keys on the Fate box. You know, there's this there's this door opening when you smell Myths. And fragrance has that power. You know, it has a power to open a locked door in your mind. And so there's the chrysanthemum flower on the top, which is associated with funerals, and there's the ash note in the base, which this is not an Amouage frankincense ash note. This is a volcanic ash, like a literal ash is falling from a volcano on you ash note, with a lovely leather, which I love. The rum note in the mid makes it very modern and yet adds that sweetness. And there's elemi and rose and vetiver. She loves vetiver, as we've seen, with labdanum. And it is just stupendous. It's stupendous to me. This is a work of art. Again, just like Fate belongs in a museum, this belongs in a museum. Some say it's unwearable. I completely disagree. The older bottles are maybe a little bit more beast mode. I don't even know if they do these 50 ml bottles anymore, but either way, you can see I've used a pretty good chunk of it. You can see the juice sloshing around in there. And so yes, I'll do a full review of Myths one day, but man, if you like the stuff I like, Myths is, it is fantastic. And then we have number 2. And number 2 is the only Amouage bottle in my collection I don't have a cap for. Pisses me off because this is like a little bit of my OCD starts to come out. I want a cap for this, but I can't because it's literally a tester of Memoir Man. And this, number 1 and number 2 fought, okay? This was almost number 1. And, but in the end, it ended up being Memoir at number 2. And you can see the tester right there. And you can see the juice and how much I've used. I've smelled many different versions of this. Again, I had a mini. So I know what Memoir smells like. And this is spot on. This is a spot on Amouage creation. It is made in Oman. I don't know if you can see right there from the reflection, but this is a made in Oman bottle. This is a 2010 release, by the way. And this is like stepping into a fairy tale. You know, if the dragon on Myths reminds you of like a mythical faraway land, this is like stepping into a Dr. Seuss book. The forest is green, but in a cartoon-like way. It's almost like you're in a drawing. It's so vibrant, and yet there's parts of it that are so exaggerated that normally wouldn't be. But there's this traditional, at its heart, there's this traditional, almost like a modern take on an insane fougere, okay? Because there's lavender absolute, that does play a big role. There's tarragon, which is one of my favorite notes. It's like a hidden, it's like a secret key, it's like a secret ingredient for me. Anytime I see tarragon, I have a good feeling I'm gonna like the fragrance. I've just come to associate tarragon in so many fragrances I love. And it usually adds this slightly green anisic-like quality, licorice anisic-like quality with this green basil note. I did an entire video on This Is Not a Top 10 Basil if you want to check that out. With a touch of mint, but just the tiniest touch. If I didn't tell you it was there, you probably would have a hard time picking it out. And this perfect Amouage frankincense. Frankincense is spot on in this one. This is one Amouage was bang on when they were doing their frankincense notes. Smoky, holy almost incense, but it mixes with leather and tobacco and what I think is one of the best sandalwood dry downs you'll smell in an Amouage. The sandalwood dry down here is just, and I'm sure it's some molecule that she used from Robertet, but it smells amazing. There's a touch of vanilla, but it's not too sweet. It's just, now, this is extremely green. So imagine you took LSD and you walked into a Dr. Seuss book. That's how green the opening is. Like your eyes are bleeding. First time you smell this, if you're not used to niche perfumery or you're not used to these sort of crazy Fate and Myths and that kind of thing, you're going to smell this and think I'm out of my mind saying that this is a wearable masculine fragrance. Give it some tries. Let your nose adjust. You're not going to like this at first. Almost 100% you won't like it. But stick with it if you're new to niche perfumery. Stick with it. You'll grow on it. And when it clicks, you're going to realize just how beautiful this is. It is probably backup bottle worthy since I only have about 65 mils left. But I'll probably just stick with this and wear what I have and then move on. But again, I owe full reviews on many of my favorite Amouages. I've been waiting to do full reviews, so those are going to be coming soon. So that leaves number one. And if you know her work, you know there's only one that's left out, and it is Overture Man. I bought this direct from Harrods. I had them send it over in 2019 when it came out. As soon as it came out, I was like, I want that. I have to find a way to get it. And shipping wasn't terrible in 2019. If you go to Parfumo and go to Overture Man and look at the note listing, you'll notice instantly the first note that comes to you that you'll see is cognac. And this is one of my favorite, I would say this is actually one of my favorite liqueur scents. And I like liquor in a fragrance sometimes. I've smelled some that maybe are not done to my high expectations of a liquor scent. And I don't know if there's any difference in the new bottles that say it on the front. So initially, when it came out in 2019, Amouage was still doing these bottles where the name was on the collar and it was not written right here. It was written on the side, okay? The new bottles say it right here. I have no clue about reformulation or anything, no clue. But what I can tell you is this is a beast. This is a true return to Amouage's form. They kind of went away from things for a while, it seemed like there. This is one of Christopher Chong's last scents. I know it's not his last. He did Rose Incense, or I forget which one was his last scent. But this is one of his last, I think this is his last masculine scent, if I'm not mistaken. And Overture, imagine giving someone like a standing ovation after the opera. And this is true, and I know that analogy is overused, but it's true. Overture brings in so many elements, and it's so perfectly executed. The grapefruit in the top, which many might say the grapefruit in the top lends this designer like smell. I disagree. The grapefruit just adds enough familiarity to where I think you're not going to sort of run in the other direction, because she also employed cumin. Not as much as she did in Fate, but you could tell that she has a very deft hand when it comes to using cumin in a fragrance because of her experience from Fate. So you get this cumin with this grapefruit that is one of my favorite grapefruit openings, actually, which sounds crazy to say because everyone else mentions all these other grapefruit fragrances that are summer grapefruits. Not for me. This is my favorite grapefruit scent. The grapefruit in here is, I mean, it is perfect, perfectly executed. Sometimes grapefruit can come across smelling designer and cheap. Not this one. Bang on grapefruit note in the opening, mixed with another fresh note, ginger. So grapefruit and ginger sort of team up to add this huge bright, this brightness to an otherwise very heavy fragrance that goes extremely resinous. And the more it stays on your skin, the more the spices and the woods and the resin start to come out. And this is, you have to wear these fragrances on skin. These are not clothes spray fragrances. They're for skin, in my opinion. But the cognac note is, I mean, there's very few fragrances, even in my giant collection, that I could say could compete with this as far as a cognac note goes. It is absolutely spot on. Imagine sitting at said opera wearing a $3,000 tux or whatever expensive tuxedo you're going to wear, and you've got your, gator shoes on or whatever animal you like. You have your expensive shoes, and you're sitting watching the opera, and somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Sir, they want you up in the box seats to go smoke a cigar and have a fantastic cognac." Probably something out of your price range, right? So you go up there and you meet your benefactor and sit down, and you just sit back and you just enjoy the beauty of the opera. And that's Overture to me. It is, it's also, if you take a look at the box, it's also sort of a curtain coming down. Can you see the change? It's made so there's a little bit of, it looks like the curtain is sort of coming down. You may not be picking that up on the camera, but it's almost sort of the curtain uh, opening or closing to the opera. And I think that's a great analogy to Christopher Chong, almost coming out on stage and giving his last bow for, in my opinion, the greatest creative director run that I know. I mean, one of the greatest, let's say. You could say that people like Lagerfeld at Chanel had a big influence on the brand, but the problem is Chanel, with Lagerfeld, he didn't do a thing with the fragrances. That was all Jacques Polge and Francois Demachy in the 80s. Lagerfeld did nothing, and not with the brand, not with the perfumes. So when I think of creative directors that, especially on me personally, not just on the rest of the fragrance world, but on me personally, Christopher Chong is like my number one. I love what he did at Amouage, and this, what he did sort of opened the door for understanding the rest of perfume too. So I think he's an absolute mastermind, and I think Amouage, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to bring in somebody that would try to make them more money, that would go more the commercial route and find a way to make them more money. But I think Amouage made a huge mistake, gigantic mistake, getting rid of Christopher Chong. That's just one man's opinion. Now, the sales at Amouage don't look like they've made a mistake because people are still out there buying, but it's a new group of buyers. It's a new class of buyers, and I'm very interested to see if alienating folks like me to go in this new direction is going to have a blowback at some point, because folks like me are going to buy perfume in any environment. The new folks they're going for, I think, are going to be a little bit more wishy-washy in what they buy. But if you get a chance to try Overture Man, I just could not put this anything but number one. Memoir almost took the top spot, but Overture had to be number one. And the way it dries with the myrrh, the warmth of myrrh and labdanum and mastic, and this animalic touch. I don't know what animalic notes she used, but there's frankincense in here. This is a true Amouage to me. So Overture Man, my favorite Karine Vinchon-Spehner creation. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. We've kept it under an hour. Appreciate everyone's support. It's always a pleasure and an honor to do these videos for you guys. Let me know what your favorite Karine Vinchon-Spehner scents are, and I very much look forward to seeing you guys again very soon. Cheers. Bye now.